Joining me now with all the latest information is Gareth Brown, who has been in the Middle East following the conflict for us. Gareth, can you please explain to us how the deaths of these aid workers even happened?
Well, it's an incident that has really, shaken the community, shaken everyone in Israel, in Gaza too. What we know is the day before yesterday, late evening, this aid team had been to a makeshift pier off the coast of Gaza, and they'd been unloading aid. There was 8 of them, and they were traveling in 3 separate vehicles. And as they came away from the pier where they'd been unloading aid, they were fired upon. The report suggests that one airstrike hit a vehicle. That vehicle stopped. They tried to bring the injured out of that vehicle and put them into a second vehicle. That second vehicle was then hit by an airstrike. And then a third vehicle, part of the same convoy, was pursued for about a mile, maybe a little bit more, and hit by a third airstrike fired from an Israeli drone. Now, what we know is that there were no survivors. Everyone was killed. And just a few hours ago, the bodies of those, the 7 foreign aid workers killed, including 3 Brits, passed into Egypt.
So how have the Israeli government responded to this news and this tragic event?
I mean, they've come out on multiple levels and said that there would be an investigation. We've heard that from the Prime Minister. We've heard that from, the very top levels of the Israeli Defense Forces. And there's anger, I think, domestically in Israel, but it doesn't seem to be quelling the international criticism and international pressure. We have countries in Europe, even in the UK, there's discussions about suspending arms exports to Israel. So, this is 7 people who have died, or 8 people who have died in a war in which, more than 30,000 Palestinians have been killed. Over 1,000 Israelis have been killed. But this small number of people seems to have changed things quite drastically.
Well, you say this small number. There's 196 other aid workers who have been killed in Gaza during this conflict. This seems incredibly reckless from a country that boasts having one of the greatest defences in the world.
Yeah, I think you raise a good point. I mean, the language we're hearing is that this is a tragic accident, but you only have to look through the last 6 months of this conflict in Gaza, and we can see, there's really a pattern. We saw in December, there was a tragic incident where the IDF shot dead 3 hostages, 3 Jewish Israeli hostages who were attempting to escape. In January, another UK NGO, Medical Aid for Palestinians, its warehouse, which was located within a deconfliction zone, the same as, a similar sort of area to where these airstrikes took place, was nearly hit. Repeatedly, we see these incidents where aid workers are killed and they're killed in deconfliction zones. So a lot of people, I think, both in the US, in Israel, in the UK, are starting to say maybe there's more to this. Maybe this wasn't just a tragic accident. Maybe that we need to examine the culture of the IDF, the rules of engagement in Gaza. And I think there's a lot of concern there, even from within the Israeli security establishment, that those rules of engagement, whatever they are, simply aren't being followed by the commanders on the ground.
So almost 200 aid workers killed, over 30,000 estimated dead in Gaza. Is it time Israel just reevaluated their tactics at trying to destroy Hamas? Because clearly there are far too many casualties currently.
I mean, a lot of the focus at the minute is on Rafah. That's that final city in the south of Gaza. And discussions about an Israeli offensive going into Gaza, going into Rafah. And this is something that the Americans are really sort of warning against. There's over 1 million people there. They're sort of hemmed up against the border with Egypt. I think the risk is now that if Israel does continue going after Hamas the way it's done, with such huge casualties on the Palestinian side, you're starting to see ripples that go beyond Israel and Palestine. We can look at Lebanon, where I am right now. We're seeing increased tensions here. We're seeing, signs that a war might be on its way here. We're seeing Hezbollah fighters being killed, over 250 killed since October 7th. This isn't a dormant front in this war. We're seeing tensions rise in the occupied West Bank, where settler violence is reaching record levels, and the Palestinian economy there has shriveled. We can look at Jordan, where Hamas's popularity has gone through the roof, and they've had quite violent protests over the last week and a half. So I think one of the real issues is if Israel keeps going at the rate it has been going since October, then this no longer becomes an Israel-Palestine-Gaza problem, and actually we start to see regional instability just sort of go through the roof.
Yeah, well, thank you, Gareth, and I hope we see a resolution across the whole Middle East that works for everyone there.